All right, Dason, this is what the pattern of prophecy is. Oh, it looks like just a bunch of squiggly lines with the word apostasy at the bottom, you say. Fine, I'll explain it for you. You start off in the beginning. You got Adam. Adam's a prophet. He has his kids and stuff. And, when you read Moses, you see that it takes a while for them to even learn the plan of salvation. They already had a bunch of children and stuff by the time he learns about the plan of salvation. He starts teaching it to his kids, but none of them listen. They all fall into apostasy. Nobody listens to God. Over time, you get to a point where God appears to Enoch, tells him, "My children have all wandered away, they all need to be brought back." And then he calls Enoch to be a prophet. Leads them all back to God. Eventually everybody gets so righteous that there's so many wicked people around. He takes Enoch from the earth with everybody, translates them all, leaving them with no prophet again. Over time, eventually God calls another prophet, tries having him teach them, but they're all so wicked he just washes the earth away and starts all over. So you got Noah. Eventually time goes on, falls into another apostasy. God calls Abraham to be a prophet. And you got, all these different periods. It happens over and over. Eventually after you got Joseph, who dies in Egypt, the people don't know anything about him or anything. They all put them into slavery, put them away. Eventually God calls Moses to be the prophet to lead them out of Egypt. Same thing happens a while later when there's no more prophets or anything. Boom, Jesus comes back. Well, here's where you really want to focus on the timeline. You explain that God's pattern is that he always calls a prophet to end apostasy. So that's what he did with Jesus. He created a new church. He was ready to fulfill the atonement. But over time, what happens? Jesus ascends into heaven. His apostles go. They start spreading the gospel around the world. But then what do we know? Well, we know the apostles all start getting killed off. You want to focus on the authority of revelation and all that. But you start to show that without them, things started falling into apostasy again. Except you focus on this one being the great apostasy, because of how much stuff was going on during the time. You want to explain, eventually the church got so big that, the Romans decided to take over it. They changed their polytheistic religious views to Christian views, and that's where a lot of different things got confused and changed around to fit the Roman lifestyle. You can explain that kind of stuff. Make sure you point out, though, this was 300 years after Jesus and the apostles were killed. You got to show the timeline. You got Jesus and everybody up here. Then a short time later, he gets killed. And then a little later, the apostles all get killed off. And then way over here, this is where, Rome takes over and decides to make Christianity the main church. And then, 1,400 years later, way down here, this is when people start questioning what's being taught. I mean, that's way back here, up to here, before somebody even notices that all this is going on. So this timeline goes way, way, way to the 1800s. When finally, people have been looking for religious freedom. I mean, you can see, there have been people that have been questioning what the Catholics have been teaching all this time. They're saying stuff was wrong, so they started to protest. That's where the Protestant religions come from. They protested what was being taught, started making other churches, because everybody was looking for, the truth. And then, you get to the 1800s, you get Joseph Smith being a 14-year-old living in a time where there's all these different religions, where it's completely okay because, hey, religious freedom is now available. Well, here's where you ask them the question. If we're in this period of apostasy, what do you think God is going to do to help his children who are wondering what to do? Well, if you follow this pattern, if God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, each of these lines here show that he calls a prophet. So what's he going to do here? he's going to have to call a prophet. You can show him things that, all the old, professors, Protestants said. One of the guys who founded the Baptist church dropped out of being a minister because he thought, there's no regularly constituted church here on the earth, and there won't be until God calls new apostles. Well, new apostles have been called under this prophet, and they continue on now. That's the pattern of prophecy. There's always been apostasy, and God ends it by calling a prophet.